Did you know that in 1970, one in every 5 new cars sold in America was a station wagon? Fast forward to today, and you'd be lucky to spot one in 100 new vehicles. What caused this dramatic shift? Was it changing tastes, new technology, or something else entirely? We're about to take you on a journey through time to uncover the truth behind the disappearance of these beloved behemoths. Picture this. It's the roaring 1920s, and you've just stepped off a train with your family, surrounded by a mountain of luggage. The excitement of your vacation is palpable, but there's just one tiny problem. How on earth are you going to get all this stuff to your hotel? Enter the unsung hero of family transportation, the humble station wagon. Back in those days, these early wagons were a far cry from the sleek machines we'd later come to love. Imagine wooden boxes on wheels, and you're not far off. These utilitarian vehicles were born out of sheer necessity, shuttling folks and their belongings from train stations to their final destinations. Hence the name Station Wagon. Pretty clever, right? But let's be honest, those first wagons weren't exactly winning any beauty contests. They were more like oversized crates with engines, built for function rather than style. However, some clever coach builders saw potential in these boxy beasts and started to work their magic. These automotive artists began transforming the utilitarian wagons into something a bit more pleasing to the eye. They added comfortable seating, improved the ride quality, and even started experimenting with different wood finishes. Slowly but surely, the station wagon was evolving from a purely practical vehicle into something families could be proud to own. Then came 1929, and boy, did Ford shake things up. They introduced the first mass-produced station wagon, making these vehicles more accessible to the average American family. It was a game changer, to say the least. But hold your horses, because there was a catch. Just as station wagons were gaining traction, the Great Depression hit like a ton of bricks. The economy took a nosedive, and suddenly, splurging on a fancy new car was the last thing on people's minds. It looked like the brakes had been slammed on wagon development. Would they survive this economic roller coaster? Well, you can't keep a good wagon down. As the economy started to recover, other manufacturers saw the potential in these versatile vehicles and decided to jump on the wagon bandwagon. Companies like Chevrolet, Plymouth, and Dodge all threw their hats into the ring, each trying to outdo the others with new features and designs. During this time, we saw some pretty interesting innovations. Manufacturers experimented with different body styles, seating arrangements, and even cargo solutions. Some wagons featured rear-facing third-row seats, perfect for keeping an eye on the kids, or giving them a prime spot to make faces at the cars behind you. Others boasted clever storage compartments and fold-down seats, turning these family haulers into surprisingly capable cargo carriers. By the late 1940s, something magical was happening. Station wagons were evolving from mere utility vehicles into true family-friendly chariots. The wooden bodies were slowly being phased out in favor of all-steel construction, making the wagons safer and more durable. Interior comfort was becoming a priority, with plush seats, improved heating systems, and even early attempts at air conditioning in some luxury models. But it wasn't just about comfort and practicality. The post-war economic boom meant that families had more disposable income, and they were looking for cars that reflected their newfound prosperity. Station wagons began to shed their workhorse image and transform into symbols of suburban success. Suddenly, pulling up to the school in your shiny new wagon was a status symbol, a far cry from those wooden boxes on wheels. As the 1940s drew to a close, the stage was set for something truly spectacular. The humble station wagon had come a long way from its utilitarian roots, but its journey was far from over. In fact, the best was yet to come. The 1950s were about to usher in the golden age of station wagons, an era that would cement these versatile vehicles as true American icons. The 1950s rolled in, and with them came a revolution on wheels. Ever wonder how a boxy family hauler became the coolest ride in the neighborhood? Well, the answer lies in a perfect storm of highways, folding seats, and post-war wallets. These three ingredients were about to cook up something truly special in the world of automobiles. Let's paint a picture of the 1950s. The war was over, the economy was booming, and families were moving to the suburbs in droves. But how were they going to get around? Enter the station wagon, ready for its big moment in the spotlight. But here's the thing. Could these boxy behemoths really become cool? That was the challenge facing car manufacturers, and boy, did they rise to the occasion. Designers started getting creative, infusing wagons with jet-age styling and luxury features that would make even the fanciest sedans jealous. It was like they sprinkled a little bit of magic dust on these family haulers, transforming them from practical workhorses into sleek symbols of suburban success. And then came the birth of some truly iconic models. Have you ever heard of the Chevy Nomad or the Ford Country Squire? These weren't just cars. They were rolling statements of American prosperity. The Nomad, with its sporty lines and two-door design, proved that wagons could be sexy. Meanwhile, the Country Squire took a different approach, embracing its boxy shape and adding a touch of simulated wood-grain luxury that became a symbol of wagon cool for decades to come. But it wasn't just about looks. The 1950s brought some game-changing innovations that made wagons more practical than ever. Remember those folding rear seats we mentioned earlier? They were a stroke of genius, allowing families to switch between hauling kids and cargo with ease. Suddenly, your wagon wasn't just for school runs. It was ready for summer road trips, camping adventures, or bringing home that new TV set you'd been eyeing. As the decade rolled on, something amazing happened. By the mid-1950s, nearly every American car manufacturer had jumped on the wagon bandwagon. Can you imagine walking into a dealership and seeing rows upon rows of these family-friendly beauties? It was a wagon lover's dream come true. But it also meant the competition was heating up. Each company was trying to outdo the others, adding more features, more style, and more reasons for families to choose their wagon over the rest. And choose them they did. Sales figures from the 1950s show a dramatic increase in station wagon popularity. It seemed like every family on the block wanted one parked in their driveway. Why? Well, it was the perfect storm of factors. The economy was strong, giving families more disposable income. The suburbs were expanding, creating a need for spacious vehicles that could handle both commutes and family outings. And let's not forget the interstate highway system, which was just beginning to connect America like never before. Suddenly, the idea of packing up the family and hitting the open road for a cross-country adventure didn't seem so far-fetched. But it wasn't just about practicality. The 1950s saw the emergence of some truly fabulous wagons that combined style with functionality. Take Mercury's Colony Park, for example. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement on wheels. It said, "Sure, I can haul groceries, but I can also turn heads at the country club." Families were looking for vehicles that could do it all, be practical for everyday use, comfortable for long trips, and stylish enough to impress the neighbors. The station wagon of the 1950s ticked all those boxes and then some. As the 1960s rolled in, station wagons weren't just riding high, they were soaring. Can you believe that 1 in every 5 new cars sold was a wagon? It's true. The swinging 60s took our beloved family haulers and cranked up the cool factor to 11. But hold on to your hats, folks, because this decade was about to take us on a wild ride through the world of wagons. Now, you might be thinking, didn't muscle cars and compacts start stealing the spotlight? You're not wrong. The 60s saw a whole new breed of cars muscling their way onto the scene. But did that stop our boxy beauties? Not a chance. In fact, it kicked off an arms race of features that would make your head spin. Picture this. You're cruising down the highway in your shiny new Chevrolet Kingswood. The kids are sprawled out in the rear-facing third-row seat, and you've got room for 6 more friends if you wanted. That's right, these big boys could seat up to 9 people. And let's not forget about the Ford Country Squire or the Chrysler Town & Country. These weren't just cars, they were mobile living rooms on wheels. But it wasn't just about size. The 60s saw wagons dolling themselves up like never before. Chrome accents? Check. Simulated wood grain siding? You bet. These weren't just practical family cars anymore. They were rolling symbols of luxury and success. Imagine pulling up to the drive-in with wood paneling gleaming under the neon lights. You'd be the envy of every family on the block. And just when you thought wagons couldn't get any cooler, along came innovations that would blow your mind. In 1966, Ford introduced something called the magic door gate. This clever little number could open both downwards and sideways. Loading up for a picnic? Swing it to the side? Need a makeshift table for your tailgate party? Drop it down. It was like having two tailgates in one. But wait, there's more. The wagon craze was so hot that even luxury brands wanted a piece of the action. Buick and Chrysler jumped into the fray, proving that you could haul the kids to baseball practice in style. These weren't just family cars anymore. They were status symbols on wheels. As the decade wore on, we saw an all-out battle of the behemoths. Wagons grew longer, wider, and more powerful with each passing year. It was like watching a cartoon where the characters keep eating magic grow pills. By the end of the 60s, some of these land yachts were pushing 19 feet long. Now, you might be thinking this all sounds too good to be true, and you'd be right to be a little skeptical. See, as our beloved wagons got bigger and fancier, some folks started to worry. All that size and power came with a price. Questions about handling and crash safety started to pop up. It was like the old saying goes, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And speaking of falling, there was trouble brewing on the horizon. As the 60s drew to a close, whispers of an energy crisis started to float around. Gas was cheap now, sure, but for how long? Those big V8 engines were thirsty beasts, and some forward-thinking folks were already wondering if there might be a better way. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, the station wagon was still king of the road. The 1960s marked the absolute peak of wagon popularity and innovation. Families loved them. Car makers couldn't build them fast enough, and it seemed like the good times would never end.